Hello everyone, welcome to this short series of videos where we're going to be covering an end-to-end analytics project. So step one is finding data and loading it into our data warehouse, and that's going to be loading it into Snowflake using Airbyte. That's today's video number one in the series. Video number two is going to be transforming that data using dbt to prepare it for analysis. We're going to be using simple SQL select statements to transform that data inside of our data warehouse. And then video number three is going to be using Tableau to gain insights on our data. So we're going to create a beautiful dashboard that's going to be chock full of insights on exactly what's going on with our data. Okay, so let's get started with loading data from the public internet. So we're going to be using a tool called Airbyte. If you're not familiar with Airbyte or never used Airbyte before, it's a data movement platform. It allows virtually anyone with no skills to be able to move data from point A to point B. It's a very intuitive user interface. Let's take a look at my screen here. If you have never used Airbyte before, you kind of get this welcome screen on your connections menu. And you can see that we have sources on the left, we have Airbyte in the middle, and destinations on the right. And your sources could be literally anything. So those are my custom sources. Let's do certified and community. So you could see here that if I get rid of my custom sources, Airbyte ships with 202 connectors for virtually any source that you can think of. And if there's a source that they don't have listed here, and if that source has a REST API, you could build your own connector using absolutely no code. And that's what we're covering in today's project. Okay, if I come back here and we look at destinations on the right, you can see that Airbyte ships with over 38 connectors. So this is not just your standard Snowflake, Google BigQuery, and just your very standard connectors. This is anything really that is popular that's being used today. They're all available here for us. So Airbyte is really winning in the space of variety of connectors because they're an open source product. And if this is your first exposure to Airbyte, I highly encourage you to just go check out their website and see what they're all about. They are a great company and they are quite inexpensive to use on their cloud-based platform, and you can actually run Airbyte for free with their open source version. Okay, so now on to today's content. Now that we have some background, we're going to be using their no-code connector builder to build our own connector off of a REST API data source. So I'm going to click New Connector here, and I'm going to say Start from Scratch. And the UI is basically going to walk us through making this API call and loading it all the way to our destination. So before we can dive into just like developing here, we need to talk about the data, like what data are we going to get? So when I'm brainstorming ideas for this project, I need to think about what is going to be interesting to me, what type of publicly available data is going to keep me interested and intrigued in order to deliver this project to you. What type of data do I want to get my own insights on? So what I thought I would cover is the greatest rock band in America. I figured we would dive into their catalog. We would see what songs they very commonly open with, what songs they very commonly encore with, and see if we can use that data to predict the next opener and predict the next encore. So without further ado, let's start building this connector. So here I have the documentation for fish.net, and it shows me basically what the base URL looks like. So I need to get this guy on my clipboard, and I'm going to paste it in here. Let's not forget to name our connector. So I'll just name it like this. And then for auth, if we check the documentation on how we authenticate, it's a little bit non-standard. They want us to authenticate using an API key in the query parameter. So here we have the hard-coded text string API key equals, and then whatever our API key is. So therefore, we can go ahead with no authentication because we're not doing, we're not doing any of these. We are using an API key, but we're not sending that as part of the body. We're going to be putting it in as a parameter. So with that, we can start creating our first stream. A stream is like a table in your destination. So a stream would be like one API source equals one table. That's a stream. So let's look at our first API source. Let's just click new. And here's the possible streams or APIs, which we can call. So this is the most basic one. This just has the name of the band and the name of the members in the band. So we're just going to start with artists. And the path is going to be /artists. And we're going to hit create. You can just keep testing this along the way. So if I hit test now, it should give me an API key error, and it does. So let me just get this API key on my clipboard. Just a moment. And what I need to do is I need to pass that API key as a URL parameter, as I said, but we need to give our users a way to input their own API key. We shouldn't hard code this, right? So in order to do that, we need to have user inputs. And what this user input section does is this is building the UI that your users are going to see when they build their connectors. So if you can imagine what it's like with any Snowflake connector that you've used in the past, that you have your account, your user, your password, etc. So here we're putting in those placeholder fields that our end users are going to see when they use this thing. So here we go. So I'm going to name it a friendly name because it's how it appears on the end user's screen. So I'm just going to say API key in very proper punctuation here. It's going to be a string field. It is a secret field, so I'll enable that. So it just gives the white dots instead of actually showing the letters. And I'm going to click create. Immediately, as soon as I see create, I see this little pop-up here that's says I need to input some values. So it says, hey, you asked your users to put in a value. You as the developer need that value in order to make these calls. So let's save that there. Now that we've created the parameter, we need to use the parameter in the query string. So where is that going to go? Let's see, query parameters. We're going to add one, and we're going to hard code the text exactly like it is in the documentation. So it's API key with no separator, and then equals, and then the actual API key value. So I'm going to do API key with all lowercase, one word, and then the value is going to be equal to the parameter which we just created, and Airbyte will put that in on the fly. Now at this point, if I hit test, I should get back some data, and I do. And if we look at this, what this request body looks like, you can see it called the URL /artist for me, and it entered a parameter of the API key, and Airbyte is friendly enough to hash that out for us, so you guys don't get to see that. Wonderful. So I think we're done with our first stream, just all of the artists. And so here I'm just checking to make sure that the detected schema, the schema based off of the data, is equal to the declared schema. And it looks like Airbyte is now offering us a radio button to automatically import the detected schema, which is what you always want. So we're going to leave that set to true. So let's just do one more together, and then I'll do the other three, I think, in fast forward here. So I'm going to hit add stream. The name of the stream now, let's do venues. Okay, and let's do /venues for my URL path. And instead of starting from scratch, having to enter in that parameter again, let's use an existing stream. Let's basically copy and paste the work we just did to a new stream. So we're going to use the artist stream as a starting point for our venue stream. And we're going to go ahead and say create. Let me just back up for a second because I realized there is a step that I skipped here. So even though my data is coming through and it looks like I'm getting several records here, in parentheses, it's saying just one record. So why is that? Well, because really the open curly brace starts here and there's only one of those. So what I need to do is I need to bust out these records into their own records, right? So it gives me this, this option called record selector. And I'm going to use the field called data. And I need to give it a primary key, otherwise things are going to get a little bit messed up in my database. So the primary key is the ID field. And it's giving me a warning, but I think when I test it again, that warning might go away because it's getting a little bit confused about the changes until I test it. Now I have 6 records and no IDs are duplicated, which is what that warning was saying. Let's now go on to our venues one. Let's just throw in a test to see what our record selector and our primary key are going to look like. So the record selector is data again. And the primary key, it looks like it's going to be venue ID. And let's go ahead and test again. and make sure that Airbyte is doing what we think it should be doing. It's giving me a little bit of a warning, like the data is too big for this test, which is fine. So that's how easy it is to create your own source connector. You've really seen the end-to-end process here. There are some other options, some more advanced features which we didn't cover. So pagination, so if you have data that you need to loop over certain pages until all the pages have exhausted, we can do that. That's outside the scope of this simple demonstration. Incremental mode, very obvious what that is. So you get a cursor field, which is a date usually. You enter in the timestamp of your cursor. And some other filtering options here. A little, again, outside of what we're covering today. We're just going to be doing full loads each time because it's going to be really, really simple for this demonstration purpose. Okay, now let's fast forward while I create the other 3 connectors here. Okay, and we're back. So I created 2 more connectors, or 2 more streams, if you will. I decided I didn't need all of the ones that are available to us for this analysis, because again, we are just trying to predict, openers and predict encores. So the list of total possible songs, all their show history along with their set list history, venues and artists should be more than enough information to be able to create this dashboard. So the next step is I need to set up a destination. Okay, so here I've already set up my Snowflake destination just to speed this up a little bit, as this video is already a little bit long. But you can see here it's as easy as filling out a form. So I'm just giving it a role, a warehouse, a database, a default schema. They give you some boilerplate code here that you can copy and paste and run in your Snowflake environment. So literally anyone can do this. Just follow the directions and you're good to go. Since I have a source and I have a destination, now I can create a connection. So what is a connection? A connection is a pair. It's a source on one side and a destination on the other. So if I click on sources, I haven't, even though I created this custom thing in the connector builder, I haven't added it as a source to my Airbyte instance, right? So these are all of the possible sources that are available, but I haven't configured the source yet, right? So the end user step of putting in that API key, etc. So my new one's not showing here, and it's because I didn't publish it. So let's come back here. It says draft in progress. And let's go ahead and publish this. So I'm just going to click the edit button and I'm going to say publish to workspace, and it's that's fine. We don't need a description because it's just a demonstration. Now when I come back to sources, it takes a second to refresh, but there it is. There's my fish.net source. And here's my user interface that we developed. Remember the API key thing, and I think it's still on my clipboard. So that's okay. Set up source. I don't need you to save my password. And now it's going to run the test. And then it's going to walk me through creating a connection. So it says, hey, you need a source. How about a target? So let's set up a destination. So these are the 2 that I've already set up. I've configured S3 credentials and Snowflake credentials. Let's load it to Snowflake. This is how the connection name is going to appear in the UI. So this is fine. It's saying it's coming from one place to another. I like that. Let's say the data residency is in the United States. The destination namespace, this is the schema that it's going to write it to. And my default schema in Snowflake is called, it's just called Airbyte. And I want it to actually write to a custom schema. So let's just call it exactly what it is. Let's just call it fish. And then we're going to apply. And then these are the tables which I can choose to sync. So let me just turn on all of these and let's run our initial sync. Okay, it looks like Airbyte is finished syncing. I have green check marks indicating all systems go. If I take a look inside my data warehouse and just refresh this, let's refresh everything. Okay, so I have a new schema called Fish with tables, artists, shows, songs, and venues. If we just want to kind of just take a peek around, here's the fields that come with the song attributes, and we can take a look at some of the rows. You can see Airbyte is adding its own helper columns here, what time it was extracted, some internal ID, the name of the song, when it was debuted, the artist, because we have a few different artists, guest appearances and stuff like that. So of course that time when Jay-Z played with Fish. And then if we just look at kind of this Airbyte internal schema, you could see what's happening a little bit under the hood. So if we look at this song's stream itself before it was transformed into tabular data, we're getting access to the raw JSON here. So it's the same 949 rows, but instead of getting all of the columns, we're getting this payload, this JSON payload in its absolute raw form. So if you ever need to go back to the raw data, like the data that the API actually returned, here you have the actual response from the API right there in a single cell. And then when you want that as columns, you already have it done for you in your end schema. Okay, now let's just continue on and just explore the user interface here. What else is happening? So if we come back to connections, this is where we created our new connection, but this is also where you're going to get the status and your job history. So if I look at the job history, here's this job here. If I want to, let's say, view the logs for that particular job, here you can see all of the logs of exactly what happened here. And most notably, some DBT transformations were actually run here. So you might actually see some SQL, and it looks like DBT is actually executing, and that's exactly what it's doing under the hood. So you could see exactly not only how your load is working out, but also what are the transformations, how is it getting inserted into your data warehouse, so you have full observability into every single step along the way. On this replication tab, this is where we can turn streams on and off. On our transformations tab, this is where we can use Airbyte Cloud to automatically trigger a DBT job upon completion of a successful sync. So if I wanted to give it a GitHub repository that had my DBT transformations, I can just throw in the link there, and I can let Airbyte Cloud automatically run my DBT jobs. Very cool. And then finally, some settings, which we don't need to get into today. So this really does conclude the demonstration on using Airbyte's no-code connector builder. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it exciting how easy it is to actually build these connectors. Literally no code. You need very, very little skills in order to do this. Anyone can do it. And best of all, guys, it's really cheap, like really cheap. So again, if you haven't looked into Airbyte yet, if you haven't checked out Airbyte, you absolutely have to go to their website, see what they're all about, see how they compete on price. And with that, have a wonderful day. I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone in the next video where we cover DBT. We're going to be using DBT Cloud. We're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty details of some transformations that we need in order to make these predictions. And then, of course, after that, the dashboard, which is going to show the entire history of the band and do some of this helping us guess the next opener and the next encore. We'll see you then. Looking forward to it.